Deadlines can turn you into a worse person. Not metaphorically. A deadline can make a patient person aggressive, a responsible student avoidant, and a normal, rational human being decide that reorganizing their entire bedroom is more urgent than the essay due in 6 hours. The unsettling question is not whether deadlines change your behavior. It is how much of what you call your personality is actually just a version of you that appears when time starts running out. Think about yourself during a normal week. You answer messages. You tolerate minor inconveniences. You can hear someone chewing without considering criminal activity. Then 3 deadlines arrive at once. Suddenly, every question feels stupid. Every interruption feels personal. Your friends are annoying. Your professor is unreasonable. Your group project partner has somehow become the physical embodiment of incompetence. It feels like your personality has changed. And that is where this gets strange, because deadlines do not need to permanently rewrite your personality to control it. They only need to repeatedly activate the worst parts of it. A deadline creates a boundary. Before this time, the work can still be completed. After this time, there may be consequences. That boundary is useful. Without deadlines, most university assignments would be submitted sometime between next week and the heat death of the universe. But the closer the boundary gets, the more your brain may stop treating the assignment like ordinary work and start treating it like a threat. And threats change priorities. When you feel calm, you can think about long-term consequences. You can plan, cooperate, tolerate frustration, and make sensible decisions. When you feel cornered by time, immediate relief becomes much more attractive. That is how a deadline can make a disciplined student suddenly avoid work. The student is not avoiding the assignment because they no longer care. They may be avoiding the anxiety attached to it. Opening the document creates stress. Closing it reduces stress. So they close it. For about 12 seconds, this feels better. Then the deadline gets closer, the stress gets worse, and the avoidance becomes even more tempting. The deadline is no longer just controlling when the student works. It is controlling what kind of person the student becomes while not working. But avoidance is only one deadline personality. Some people become irritable. They snap at friends, argue with family, and respond to harmless questions like they're being interrogated by federal agents. Some become impulsive. They abandon the assignment, order expensive food, skip class, or make dramatic decisions because doing anything else feels better than sitting with the pressure. Others become strangely controlling. Suddenly, everyone in the group project must follow a color-coded system created at 2:13 in the morning by someone who has not consumed water since Tuesday. These behaviors can look like personality traits. Lazy, moody, reckless, difficult, unreliable. But what if the deadline is not revealing who you really are? What if it is repeatedly rehearsing a stressed version of you until that version starts feeling normal? A 2023 study published in the Journal of Personality helps explain part of this. University of Washington researchers Catherine Saldine, Liliana Langua, and Kevin King followed 362 first-year college students over 6 months. They examined how short-term and persistent stress related to different aspects of impulsivity. Both short-term and persistent stress were associated with greater negative urgency, meaning a stronger tendency to act rashly while distressed. Persistent stress was also associated with worsening perseverance over time, making it harder to stay focused on demanding or unpleasant tasks. But stress was not reliably associated with every form of impulsivity. It was not consistently connected to acting without considering consequences. That distinction matters. The study did not show that stressed students simply lost all self-control and transformed into raccoons with student loans. It suggested something more specific. Stress may amplify emotional reactions and make it harder to remain engaged with difficult work. The researchers measured general perceived stress, not deadline pressure specifically. The findings were associations. So they do not prove that deadlines directly change someone's personality, but deadlines are one of the most common ways students experience repeated stress. And if every week contains another urgent assignment, exam, presentation, application, or administrative portal designed by someone who hates humanity, then the deadline version of your personality may keep getting called back up onto the stage. That creates an uncomfortable possibility. You may think that you are naturally bad at university when you are actually bad at living in constant emergency mode. You may think you lack discipline when your entire system depends on panic to begin working. You may think you are an irritable person when you have simply spent 4 months feeling like you are permanently 20 minutes late. However, deadlines are still necessary. Removing them entirely would not create a peaceful educational paradise. It would create confusion, procrastination, and one professor receiving 140 assignments during retirement. The goal is to not eliminate deadlines. The goal is to stop allowing every deadline to become a personality test. The first step is to separate the official deadline from the moment the work becomes urgent. If an essay is due Friday, but you do not emotionally acknowledge its existence until Thursday night, the deadline has already taken control. It has decided when you will work, how stressed you will feel, and which version of you everyone else will have to deal with. Breaking one deadline into smaller checkpoints takes away some of that control. Choose a topic Monday, find sources Tuesday, draft Wednesday, revise Thursday. It sounds painfully responsible, which is why almost nobody becomes a productivity influencer by saying it. But smaller checkpoints prevent one date from carrying the entire emotional weight of the project. The second step is to make deadlines visible. A deadline hidden inside a syllabus, an email, and 3 separate learning platforms is not a plan. It is an ambush. A single calendar or planner reduces the number of surprises your brain has to defend itself against. That is why school calendars and planning tools, including ones built into platforms like TutorTech AI, matter more than they appear to. They are not just organizing assignments. They are helping prevent assignments from organizing your personality. The third step is to identify who you become under pressure. Do you become avoidant, hostile, controlling, reckless? Do you disappear, procrastinate, or start treating minor inconveniences like personal attacks? That pattern is not an excuse, but it is information. Once you recognize your deadline personality, you can interrupt it earlier, before the stress becomes strong enough to make every decision for you. Because deadlines will always exist. Work will have deadlines. Bills will have deadlines. Applications, taxes, projects, and responsibilities will continue arriving with suspicious confidence. The real skill is not learning how to work under pressure. It is learning how to stop pressure from choosing who you become. So the next time a deadline makes you act like someone you barely recognize, do not immediately decide that this is your true personality finally being exposed. Ask a better question. Did the deadline reveal who you are, or did it quietly take control of you?